Hello, my Substack family. This is my very first live on Substack, and I thought I was called to actually just jump on here to just chat for a couple of minutes and to sort of recap an experience that I had over the weekend that I was both writing about and wanted to revisit in just a quick live video and give this a shot and give this a try. And so bear with me. This is not scripted. I don't do scripted live streams. So I just don't roll that way. So bear with me while I get through just a little topic. It's not going to take very long, about this topic of the relationship between our brains, our nervous system, and ourselves. And I know there's a lot of chat. In fact, I actually just saw a post that was talking about the nervous system, and we're seeing it everywhere. We're hearing it everywhere. Next year, it'll be something else. But right now, there's just a lot of talk around the state of the nervous system. And I think, too, it's something that people are really looking for. They're really looking for, how do I feel more settled in my own skin? How do I feel more calm? How do I navigate through these very uncertain times that we're living in? So I think that it causes us to have either these knee-jerk reactions, or it triggers us, it brings up old traumas, and there's just a lot that's stirring up inside of us, right? In this area right here. This is where I actually feel my nervous system activated, is right in my solar plexus. And so we did a workshop this weekend on sleep and stress primarily. That was really the focus of the workshop. And I led a mindfulness meditation with body scan, and my partner led a yin yoga practice. And we decided to bring these two modalities together because these are both practices that we can all use on our own time to send the right signals to our nervous system that it's safe to settle down, to rest, to sleep, and whatever it is. So what I wanted to talk about was this relationship between the brain and the nervous system and ourselves, and what our different roles are. So the brain is primarily responsible for protecting us. That's what our brain's job is. It is to protect us. So it's really always looking for, how can my person, how can I be safe? How can I, not hurt myself? How can I not go hungry? How can I make sure that I get plenty of rest? How can I, protect myself from the energy of another person? Like, whatever it is, the brain is always looking to protect us. And so we talked a little bit about the balancing out of the neurotransmitters GABA and glutamate. GABA is the neurotransmitter that says, wait, we need to step on the brakes a little bit here. We're a little too hypervigilant, hyperactive, a little bit too all over the place. And then the glutamate is the neurotransmitter that says, we need to step on the gas pedal a little bit. We need to up the energy. You're a little too sedated, a little too out of it. So the brain is always trying to balance out those two neurotransmitters. And I had brought in some essential oils, and I explained how they help to support the how those neurotransmitters work. The nervous system's job is to receive signals, right? So the nervous system responds to an experience that we're having. So for example, if you're driving a car and the person in front of you suddenly stops short, you have that knee-jerk reaction, right? You quickly step on the brakes because you don't want to hit the car in front of you. So basically what's happening is a signal is sent to the nervous system that there's danger. That signal goes up the vagus nerve into the brain. The brain receives the message like, alert, alert, she's in danger. And it quickly tells the body what to do. It tells, the foot, step on the brake before she, gets into an accident or gets hurt. So that's sort of like how that cycle goes. Well, if we can, that's an involuntary response, but there's also the voluntary response, right? So we can actually change the way the brain operates, right? We can actually tell the brain, you don't need to protect me right now. I'm actually safe. Because that, when the brain is in protection mode, a lot of times what happens is like we either stay in a chronic stress state, or we're always worrying about something, we're always activated. Even if you're up late working on your laptop until the minute you turn the lights out to go to bed, you're sending messages to your nervous system, right? That signals to your nervous system, and the nervous system is sending messages to the brain that it's like, no, you still need to work, you still need to figure out problems, you still need to like sort through this. And so that is a protection mechanism. But when we are in body ready to go to bed, the brain isn't, because we didn't send any signals, we didn't do any winding down, we didn't do, any sort of like meditation or turn the lights out or do any of the things that signals to our nervous system that things are getting quiet, things are simmering down, it's safe to go to bed. So that's why like a bedtime routine is so important. So I'm just explaining this in terms of like what we talked about this weekend, which was, controlling our level of stress and being able to fall asleep at night and stay asleep. We actually do have control over that. And I think a lot of times we sort of walk through life feeling like our body and our minds are controlling us. And it's like, well, that's, what it's going to do. I have sleep issues. I have anxiety issues, we feel like it's out of our control. And so a lot of times we'll go to the doctor and get a prescription, and the prescription, initially makes us feel better, like for whatever it is. It gives us, it helps us to experience less anxiety, or it helps us to fall asleep really fast. But that instant gratification, right, from the prescription, it just sort of delays us, doing our part to naturally train the mind and the body to go to sleep on its own, right? Or to come down from a stress state, shift from sympathetic to parasympathetic on its own. But we do have control over that, right? And it's all about sending the right signals to the nervous system so that the message gets to the brain that it is safe to shut down, to rest, to restore, and to go to sleep. And so we did the mindfulness meditation, right, which is a practice, a neuroscience practice, actually. I mean, practicing mindfulness meditation regularly over time, like 10 minutes a day, consistently over time, will actually change the formation of your brain, right? Create new neural pathways, which is neuroplasticity, and which ultimately changes the way that your brain operates. So we can actually train our brain to shut down at a certain time at night, or to recognize that we are no longer in danger, and we can come out of that sympathetic nervous state, that fight or flight response, and shift over into the parasympathetic nervous state, right? We don't need to take a pill. We can actually train the brain to figure this out with our help. So the mindfulness meditation was a practice that showed the students that by bringing your focus and attention on what is happening in the current moment through body awareness and sensory awareness, how they can actually, on their own, naturally start to shut the brain down and send this signal to the nervous system that's saying like, oh, okay, things are slowing down. There's actually nothing to figure out. There's, nothing to protect here. There's no danger present, which that message goes to the brain, and the brain's like, oh, okay. Like if there's no work to be done, if there's nothing to protect, right? If there's no fire to put out, then I'm going to start to shut down. So that's one practice that can help us do it. And then the yin yoga, it's just a way to do that also through movement and just the specific, I'm not a yin yoga teacher, so I'm not going to go into it, but I love the practice of yin because it does actively slow us down. It does send that signal to the nervous system through these, holding these gentle poses for 3 to 5 minutes. You're pausing, right? You're pausing and you're signaling to the nervous system, pause, stop. Like, it's okay. We don't need to go anywhere. We don't need to fix anything. We're just going to be here. So, bringing these two practices together was so powerful this weekend during the workshop. And what was really cool about it was not so much what I'm explaining to you here and teaching you here about the nervous system and like how the brain and the nervous system and, how we all work together. It's like this threesome, right? Threesome relationship. But it was about how the women stayed in the room for like a good 20 minutes after this experience that brought them together and slowed them down. Nobody was running out of there saying like, I've got to get to the next thing, or I've got to get home to dinner. My husband's waiting for me. My kids are waiting for me. Like, everybody sort of carried that slow, calm pace out of the studio very, very slowly. So it was nice to see not only the connections being made there, but there was conversation. These are women that didn't even know each other. And, they were connecting and they were talking about their experience and they were exchanging numbers and they all had common interests. And it was just beautiful to see how bringing these two modalities together that can really help us to regulate our nervous system, right? And train our brains to just slow down on their own. I could actually see it in real time happening, with these women just sort of lingering afterwards and wanting to savor that energy that they experienced during the 2 hours in the studio. And so these are just examples of, what we can do on our own to train the brain to operate the way that we want to live, right? The way that we want to live. If you want to live a more balanced life that feels, like you can get up and just live with ease and, breathe a little more slowly and not feel like you have to do everything for everybody, be everywhere all at one time, and just be a little bit more zen. These are things that you can easily do on your own. And it was such an honor for me to be able to share it with everybody. So that was pretty much all I wanted to share. And I did write an article yesterday that talks a little bit more about the experience. And thank you to the one person that's tuning in right now. And I guess this will be posted. We'll see how it goes. Like I said, this was my first live on Substack. So this was kind of fun. I've done plenty over on Facebook, and I'm so happy to be shifting over here and, bringing my mindfulness teachings here and just sharing over here. I'm a writer at heart, so I love having this space to write and to celebrate with other writers and just see what's happening. So thank you so much for tuning in. And let me just see if there's anything else. I'm still going to have to, this is a work in progress and I'm going to have to learn as I go. I'm not sure how to shut off the live. I think I just hit the X. So anyway, share a comment. Let me know what you thought. There's a lot of talk out there about nervous system. I have my own spin on it, my own way of teaching it. It operates like it operates, but I see a lot of us approaching the topic from a different perspective, and I appreciate that. So share your thoughts in the comments, and I will talk to you next time. Thanks.